Okay, so now we're at the O in riot, which is observation. So, what can you expect when a assessor comes to the classroom to observe your child as part of a psychoeducational assessment? Well, first of all, most of the time, the students aren't going to be aware that the psychologist is there to observe them, and also peers will not be aware. This is because we want to see an authentic representation of the child and how they do in class, and we don't want them to change who they are or what they do because the assessor is present. The teachers will typically know ahead of time that we're coming to observe, and that's because we want them to not draw attention to us when we walk in the classroom, and we also want to have an area where we can sit and observe. During this observation, the assessor is going to be looking at how your child interacts with peers, with the teacher, with the schoolwork. They're going to take notes on how your child completes work. Is there, does a child need a lot of help with completing work? Are they not getting to work even when their teacher has asked them? Are they doing other things that they shouldn't be doing? Additionally, the assessor is going to look at how they interact with their peers and whether or not there are good interactions or challenging interactions. And also, they're going to try to get a feel for how this child is doing academically, not on paper or in a standardized way, but generally speaking, how's this child getting along in the classroom with the curriculum? Are they keeping up? Do they seem like they're very behind compared to peers? Does it seem like they need a lot of support? What exactly is happening with this child and how they're doing in the classroom? And so when we're looking at this child during our observation, it's really all about educational impact. And this is an opportunity for us as assessors to see with our own two eyes how the child is affected or impacted potentially by any possible disability. If the child has social, emotional, and behavioral challenges, we are going to really want to see them also in unstructured playtimes, including PE, lunch, recess, and even PE may be one that is not unstructured enough because if the coach has an activity that they're doing and if they're guided the whole time, we're going to count that more as a structured activity. So, really, recess and lunch are better times when we're looking for unstructured engagement. And that will help us to get an idea of their natural interaction with peers and how some of these social, emotional, or behavioral deficits or challenges are impacting them at school. The other thing I want to talk about is testing. And when we talk about testing, there are different kinds of tests. We talked earlier about standardized measures. And I also want you to know about rating scales. Rating scales are also standardized, but they're not the same kind of test you would give a student with engagement between the examiner and student in a to and fro manner. These are questions where a child is going to rate themselves or someone else is going to rate the child. Usually, that someone else is going to be a teacher and a parent. And we are always looking for ratings from both parties because I want to learn more about how the child is doing in school per their teacher's opinion and how they're doing at home and school per their parents' opinion. And so if you get a rating scale, it's really important for you to complete it and return it because this is your opportunity to give more of your perspective with a standardized tool. So we'll be able to see how your ratings place this child compared to their peers, which is very important because going back to that bell curve I mentioned earlier, we want to see if they're falling at a more affected rate than their peers or if they're doing better than their peers or are they just like their peers. In other words, if you have a challenge like a social skills deficit, for example, let's say the skill we're looking at is making friends. Well, if the skill is making friends and we are observing the student and we have some information from our observations, it would be really nice to get a parent perspective and a teacher perspective on making friends and then compare how they rated those children to what the norm is expected to be for those children. And that's what these rating scales allow us to do. It takes us from observational data or data that we're collecting with our naked eye to standardized assessment where we can compare how the child did compared to their peers on that bell curve. So it's really important to participate in rating scales. And this is the T in riot testing. And again, testing is not just rating scales. This is one component I'm focusing on, but testing also consists of possibly academic testing, intelligence testing, processing testing, and other tests that look at skills like adaptive skills, behavioral skills, social and emotional skills, and sometimes even a skill we call executive functioning. And so, again, with these rating scales, it's super important that you are involved and that you give your opinion as a parent or a guardian, because we want to learn more about your perspective and have a way to compare your perspective to how other parents are rating their kids. And that helps us to have a more sound assessment. And a note that I haven't mentioned yet, when we are doing these assessments, we're not taking one test or one observation or one interview or one record review and making a decision. We're bringing everything together and using it to have a comprehensive look at your child and to use it all together, analyzed and synthesized in order to make a conclusion regarding whether or not your child has a disability. And so it's so important to get these multiple perspectives so that we can bring them in and tell the true story of this child.